Welcome to yet another edition of News and Views, a series meant to make up for the lacuna of mainline media or journalism as it is practiced today. I believe that the age of journalism is over, that responsible journalism, which is one of the major pillars of democracy, has been prostituted in India to a state of political expediency and economic profit, which is a terrible disservice to the people of India. And therefore, individuals here and there must now rise to the occasion and stand in the gap, as it were, and make up for the deficiencies, the inadequacies, the wide and yawning gaps created by the total subjugation of the media. So that's the overall purpose of this series. And my viewers must be advised that the purpose here is not merely to increase their knowledge of facts, though everything that we share through this series will be based on facts and nothing but facts, no deviation from facts. The scope of this series will exceed the mere narration of facts. That's why I advisedly chose the title News and Views, because each event points to a large chunk of reality which the mainline or mainstream media masks or hides for reasons that don't have to be mentioned, because these things are pretty well known. What's the fun repeating the obvious? However, there is a terrible disservice to Indian democracy, and therefore those who love democracy must do whatever they can within the means available to them to supply the want or to make up for the lacuna. Now, this video will be a good illustration of that. I've already shared with you 3 videos on what happened on the opening day of the 18th Parliament post-independence India. This is going to be the 4th, because what happened in the Parliament yesterday is of such tremendous consequence and such rippling nuances that sufficient justice could not be done in 1 video or 2 videos or even 3 videos. And very likely this is the last video on what happened yesterday. Now, in this video, the focus is on the hopes that were raised for quite a while that there would be a significant difference in the culture of cooperation between the treasury benches and the opposition parties as compared to the 17th Lok Sabha, and that the functioning of the 18th Lok Sabha would be marked by greater bonhomie, camaraderie, cooperation between the 2 blocks. And for quite a while, it seemed as though that would be the case. And I, for one, heaved a big sigh of relief that the age of confrontation is over and a new era of cooperation based on mutual trust, mutual respect, and a sense of collegiality will now become the order of the day, which is what India needs at this time. So it went on very well, but about 7 minutes from the end, whatever was laboriously built up till that point in time was rudely shattered, and the whole situation was pulled by the scruff of its neck and taken back to the old age of confrontation. And this is an extraordinarily sad reality. So when I reflected on this, a statement by Milton, John Milton, the great epic poet of England. I had the joy of teaching Milton at the undergraduate level, Paradise Lost. A statement by John Milton came to my mind, and I thought I'll share that sentence with you and reflect very briefly on it. And it's my hope that you will find this worthwhile. Milton said, "Never can true reconcilement, that is reconciliation, never can true reconciliation grow where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep." Never can true reconciliation grow where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep. Now, all that I want to say by way of explaining the logic of the terrible collapse of the expectation built up to almost the very end of the session yesterday is so neatly and comprehensively brought together by John Milton in this one sentence. And that's why he is great. This is a sign of greatness, that a person brings together a lot of things in the ambit of a single sentence. Now let's very quickly decode Milton's meaning. What he says, reconciliation is what is good for a people. Prolongation of conflict, making skirmishes endemic, harboring the poison of hatred and mutual distrust, trying to thrive at the expense of the other, which is what perpetuates conflicts and which renders peaceful coexistence and meaningful cooperation impossible. So, reconciliation is the basic need of a society that is constantly rifled with large-scale conflicts, tensions, traumas, etc., will only dissipate its energies that can be used much better for improving the lot of the people of the country. So this perpetuation of conflict and antagonism will inhibit the creative energies of a people and cripple their ability to think constructively, creatively for the welfare of the people and for the good of the country. Their obsession will be how to catch each other off guard, surprise them, and take the wind off their sails. That's the problem with this psychology of antagonism. It robs the people who harbor this virus of their inner freedom to do the best that they can. It renders them blind as to the possibilities that beckon them. Their entire obsession, their whole focus will be on the presumed antagonist or adversary, and their single line of thought, their megalomaniacal obsession will be with the ways and means by which to throw the other person into the doldrums, to create maximum embarrassment, maximum harm, and if possible, to eliminate the person, as in the case of Congress Mukt Bharat. Now, once a party proclaims Congress Mukt Bharat as its goal, it's natural that it awakens the reciprocal sentiment of BJP Mukt Bharat. Because Congress is in no position to say that that's the reason why they're keeping quiet about it. Logic of life and history tells us that if one particular goal is projected by a party, its opposing party will formulate a reciprocal goal based on the same logic. And this pattern we are familiar in this country in relation to the idea of reciprocal communalism. Minority communalism provoking majoritarian communalism, majoritarian communalism again feeding and fueling minority communalism, and this kind of escalating, mutually reaffirming and ever perpetuating, never ending conflict of interest called the reciprocal communalism of the two blocks. In a similar manner, this particular goal, if it is really perpetuated, if it's pushed beyond a limit, will activate the same goal to be embraced by the opposite camp. So what I'm trying to say is, make is a simple point, that this mindset of antagonism, the refusal to live in peace and harmony, the reluctance to accept a culture of cooperation, working together for the common good, is seriously wasteful of the energies of a nation, and it will do enormous long-term harm to the country at large. I don't know how this professed patriotism of a party or several parties can sit comfortably with their inclination, their determination to perpetuate the culture of conflict, which can only harm the country. So, on the one hand, they claim to love the country, and on the other hand, they do all they can to harm the country. Pardon me, I don't understand the logic of this. If you do, please help me to understand, I shall be grateful. Okay, so this is the issue. Now, as Milton said, that, and we don't need Milton's help for it, we all know it, reconciliation of conflicts is the need of the hour. And on certain occasions, the parties concerned may even publicly profess their inclination to come to a stage of reconciliation. They may even pretend or play act in public view that they are all inclined and interested to have this conflict resolved and to attain this advantage of being reconciled to each other, so that the wasteful expenditure of energy can be avoided. So Milton says, never can true reconciliation grow. However, your statements, your pretensions, your play acting apart, you will never be able to attain and preserve this state, this necessary state of reconciliation, because there is a background, there is a context. And you will never be able to, because you are so narrow, petty-minded and mean-minded, you will never be able to outgrow the context in which this mutual antagonism was harbored. After all, this mutual antagonism, this mutual hatred, this conflict was generated for a particular purpose. That purpose was that both parties believed, at least one of the parties believed, that their greatest profit lay in creating this culture of antagonism with the stated intention of eliminating one party and, if possible, all opposition parties. Now, so long as your political vision is such that you think that your maximum gain lies in the way of perpetuating conflict and preserving this attitude of irreconcilable opposition and the conflict it generates with all parties that are not like you, parties that do not toe your line, then Milton says the context in which this particular misery was generated remains. You've done nothing about it. And on the other hand, even today you are trying actually to deepen the wounds and intensify the hatred, as it indeed happened towards the end of the session yesterday. The most unfortunate thing about which I've already commented, it was totally out of place for the newly elected Speaker of Lok Sabha to revive the memories of the emergency. But certainly that was not the occasion. If harmony and mutual reconciliation was the goal, that was not the thing to be done. It could not even have been thought of on that occasion. The beautiful note of expectation raised by all that happened preceding that dreadful minute of introduce the kind of quasi-resolution, so to speak, the botched up resolution, that was completely ruined. Now, my way of understanding this is that in that particular moment, the BJP, as per its well thought out plan, decided to reject this idea of working with the opposition parties, creating a culture of cooperation, meaningful and principled cooperation, and affirmed its exclusive faith in the culture of conflict, confrontation, antagonism. So, on the one hand, some lip service was paid to the relevance and the need for reconciliation. On the other hand, a body blow, a sledgehammer blow was dealt to the very prospect of reconciliation by resuming the old and habitual method or way of mutual antagonism. So, reconciliation and antagonism. Now, this kind of terrible mix, I don't know where this will lead us. So, that's what Milton is saying, where wounds of deadly hate have pierced so deep. That is to say, hate has become a habit. It has become second nature to certain parties. And therefore, they are strategizing their profit, their future, their gain. Their way of getting ahead of other parties is only through the language of hate, the logic of hate, the strategies of hate. And therefore, the cat jumped quite out of the bag towards the concluding part of the session yesterday, when there was a terrible throwback to the old mode of confrontation, completely rejecting the prospect of any reconciliation. Therefore, I would, with great trepidation and much sadness, look forward to the resumption of the business of the 18th Parliament and see how this poisonous resumption of antagonism, hatred, will play out in the days ahead. This is not something that any one of us should be happy about. Rather, it's a much lamentable thing, and I personally lament it. I wish it hadn't happened this way. But with this, I'm fairly sure that we can only look forward to days of confrontation, and there is no margin whatsoever of meaningful cooperation between the treasury benches and the opposition parties, and working with some degree of mutual respect and trust to maximize the well-being of the people. I lament the plight of the people of India, particularly the poor and the marginalized, people whose plight has become unbearable despite all the progress that has been touted and celebrated. The people are suffering, and look at what happened in the Parliament. Not a single thought as to what should happen to this country and how the people can be helped. All that matters is that something happened 50 years ago. I say it again, it should not have happened, there's no doubt about it. But what the people of India, particularly the starving 500, 800 million people, the people who have to line up for the 5 kilogram ration that Sri Narendra Modi so proudly claims to be distributing to them. That ration is a symbol of their helplessness, their deprivation, their utter misery. Not a thought was paid to how their plight, their suffering may be ameliorated. All that was, the only obsession was how to put the opposition parties, particularly the Congress, in a very embarrassing situation. Not how to maximize the welfare of the people, but how to maximize the embarrassment of a political party which is in the opposition. Now, this is extremely unfortunate. It is unhealthy, and it doesn't augur well for the country. Well, that's precisely what I think about it. I wait to hear what you think about it. It's only when we share our opinions that we are in a position, or come into a position, where we can educate each other. I certainly need to be educated, and I therefore eagerly look forward to any feedback that any member of this YouTube fellowship cares to provide. So, once again, we'll continue our series, News and Views, and the Malayalam counterpart of this is Chayayim Oru Kadiyum. Chayayim Oru Kadiyum. I will not translate that for you because it's a Malayalam idiom. When idioms are translated into another language, there is a problem. It's extremely difficult to translate idioms, so I will not attempt to do that. Thank you, and I wish you a good day ahead.